Hi, everyone. Welcome to this edition of our webinar. The usual suspect, Praveen, is not doing this webinar. It's me, Dan, who's doing this. The reason why we're doing this is because we want everybody to kind of get a feel for the new UI that we have changed. It's not a huge change in look and feel, but it's definitely a big change in the mindset, the way we want to drive to use the product. I'll be honest with you, everything that we have changed in the UI is mainly because of feedback from some caller, right? Like, somebody in your community wanted this change, and that's why we've done that. Now, the way you know that, you're seeing the change is you will actually see that the right-hand panel, the left-hand panel is shrink considerably. You will see that our logo has shrunk, navigation panels have shrunk. So I'm going to start from basics. So when you load into the software, you will now see that the right-hand panel is a much more smaller piece. And we made a few adjustments because we thought like by shrinking this, we will give you more space to view things. Now, if you don't see this, and if you see the old, that means you don't have our software yet. And how do you actually make that change? To see that is, first thing we would advise is we would ask you to click on this icon here, go into settings of Chrome, generally go into advanced settings, and there'll be one to clear your browser cache history. And you want to clear for the last 7 days. And after you do that, you want to now reload uLaw. You will definitely get our new software. Our new software build release is 4082. So that tells you how old we are, from 2011 to 2018. And why are we bringing this change? We're bringing this change primarily because we want to change the perception of how you do the manner. Okay, so let me now walk you through that experience of actually going through a manner and how you can doing yourself a little differently. Okay. Now, to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to obviously create a client. Okay. Now, the dashboard, we have not made any huge changes here, but we've definitely made changes right from the client level. So in the client level, right, what you can do is I'm going to create a new contact. So let's say add new contact client. For this demo purpose, I'm going to use, I'm going to create a client. Let's say she's at, KJ Incorporation, 81 King Street. I'm going to say Ottawa. That's our hometown, Canada. And let's say it is K3R485. And that's her mailing address. And that's her phone number that you got. Okay, that's her phone number. And you're going to save and start making a matter. Now, until here, we haven't changed a lot. We just obviously changed the left-hand side a little bit more because we wanted to give you a little bit of more real estate. But now once you land onto the screen, things have changed pretty significantly. Let me start working on every change, and we'll reason behind why we did these changes. And feel free to use your chat line to ask more questions, and we will walk you through the changes. So let's say this is a small claim made. So let's say it is Kanchan versus John, and obviously you guys know the area of practice. That hasn't changed. You can have your own, or you can use what we have, and we make small claims, and we hit the save button. Okay. Now, once you hit the save button, obviously you can go with code file number, and none of that has actually changed. Our motto has always been like to direct you towards clicking only two buttons in our software. One is either the action button, which has changed significantly, and the other one is the document generation button, which is where you kind of do a few things. There are a few things that have been added here. I'll walk you through some of those changes, but overall, things have remained fairly consistent on this particular one. Okay. The first change that we have kind of brought in, okay, is around the action button. And why did we do this change? We basically believe that what happens in the matter basically follows dollars. Like, a lot of money is being exchanged as part of matter. They are in general or they are in trust. So we wanted to kind of make it very clear that when you're entering something into uLaw, you think in the direction of the flow of the dollars. Okay? For example, the guy is giving you retainer. The first thing you think is, oh, I need to deposit that into trust account right here, right? Deposit into trust, three things. It can either be a retainer, it can be a settlement, that somebody else is paying that you're depositing, or it's some other payment. So we kind of categorized it into two categories, as you see here, general or trust. And within general, it's either a deposit or a withdrawal. So you don't even have to think twice when you click on the action button. You immediately know what it is all about, and then you immediately do that. Like, for example, if it's a new retainer, we say, oh, that's a deposit into trust. We give you that clue, like what you need to do with that. So we say, new retainer, $700. You put the check here. Let's say the check number is whatever. You choose your whatever account where you're depositing it, right? And you can put the receipt from, or otherwise we'll assume it's from this person, and you hit the apply button. Okay? Now, as you notice, you can use this action button to drive your content, or we also started introducing two new panels here, trust and general. Okay? And the reason why we did these two panels is because we want you to drive in that mindset. If I am actually depositing that money into trust, I want to see it here. So you can say, hey, deposit into trust. Again, three things, new retainer, settlement, or other payment, or withdraw from trust. Like, these could be disbursements or other things that you're doing. So let me walk you through more examples. Let's say there was another retainer that was written. So you can say deposit into trust. You don't have to use the action button. You can always go into trust because you know it's a trust money. And you can say new retainer, another $200. Let's say this time the person pay you cash. You can deposit it into your, cash account temporarily because, you need to go to physically to the bank to deposit it. And then let me deposit it right away, move it from your cash account into your trust account. Okay, you do that. Now, notice what happens when I go into the matter right now, right away, without even hitting the question mark. I see, hey, deposits in trust, 100, withdrawals are 0, everything is there. The statement of account is right there. You don't have to do document generation, statements, trust, show only. You don't have to do this whole 9 yards to find out, how much money you have in trust, right? You don't have to do that. So we have put it right there rather than you clicking all these documents. You don't have to document. You can view the statement of trust right there. And actions that you will take in trust are categorized here. You're either depositing or you're withdrawing. Okay? Now, if you have to pay disbursement, you can do it right from here. Under trust, pay disbursement from trust. You can just say, hey, that's a disbursement, $60. Check number that I'm writing is 78. Court fee, right? And it's paid to Brampton, City of Brampton or Brampton Courthouse, whatever you want to do, and hit the payments button. Now, watch this. Again, when you do that, right in the trust button, because it was a withdrawal, you will now see in the statement of action, disbursements was withdrawn, the balance is trust is, this is your actuals. This is projected, but this is your actuals. Your actuals get updated on the fly. You don't have to actually do a document generation or anything like that to actually, visualize that anymore. Okay? So, again, going back, your action button remains the same, but it's now divvied up into two parts, either the general view or the trust view. And as you saw in trust, when I put the new retainer, it showed up in my trust. And when I did my withdrawal from trust, which I paid a disbursement, it showed up in trust. The amount got subtracted, the balance got updated, and the statement of accounts that you always want to is right in front of you in your screen. Okay. Now, this is on a needly basis. Let's say you are in this window, it's not updated there. The minute you go there, you'll see it'll just look up the data, and it'll immediately immediately pull out all the data and show it to you. Okay? So it saves you time to actually go into a documentation process to actually see what your trust balance is. Let's now talk about some of the beautifications that we did around docketing. Okay? We kind of the docketing is still very similar, but we made it a little more. We tried to space it out a little better so that like for example, if you say initial client meeting, and you can always say 1.2, and if you convert it to an hour and 12 minutes, the minute you made it, you put that, it automatically marks the status as complete because you've done the billable time. Everything looks good here, and when you hit the save button, it takes it. So we've adjusted real estate space here so that you can see more. Like we create a lot more spaces. Some of the people use a lot smaller windows. So that's where we kind of have done that. Now there is a question here. What about making the trust in red so that it minimizes mistakes? Making trust in red so that it minimizes. Okay, I did not understand the question or the comment, but in uLaw, if something is red, it means you have to take an action. Like, for example, clearly we say here, invoices pending. It's refund. That means you still have money in trust that you're fully not utilized. So anything when we show in red, that means it's an action to you. That's when we use the red color. But we will think about that optimization. If you're thinking like, hey, we have to show something in red, maybe because there's a trust balance, you want to show it in red, we can think about that. That's a good feedback. But the color definition that we want to engrave into your thought process is anything that is red means like it immediately tells you that you need to take an action. Okay. Now, obviously here invoice is pending, right? So I'm not going to do an invoice right away. I'm going to now work my way into other action buttons. Okay. So if I click here on the action button, as you see here, again, let's do a little bit of general. Like I did a little bit of matter docketing. Let's talk about disbursements. Now, disbursements, I already showed you an example that I can go into trust, click here from withdraw from trust account and pay from general. Now, there can be other disbursements that you might be doing withdrawals from general account. So if you go into the general panel, there are deposits into general account that you could be doing for a particular matter. And I click there, it's basically accepting a client payment or transferring and paying yourself. We're not going to do that right away. Let's look about some withdrawals. Withdrawals are providing client a refund. We're not going to do that, but let's talk about disbursement. It shows you clearly what are the disbursements that you can do. These are money that's leaving your trust account. For example, you can say disbursement from your trust account. You can say, hey, I actually did an application fee, and the amount is $70, right? That's what I'm charging the client. The top part always tells you what you're charging the client, right? The bottom part is how much you actually spend for it, right? Like let's say you only spend $70 on that, exactly same. You can just say 70, and it means the same thing, but you could have a different number here. Like you can say, hey, you know what? I spent $35, but I'm charging the client 70. That could be. Or if you realize that the client is not going to pay for it, you can actually say $0 and say 70. That means I spend the money, the client is not paying for that. So we give you an option now to separate general into two parts. One is what you are charging the client, which is the top part, and you're reporting the expense here in the bottom part. And you can actually tell us how you actually are reporting. Like, for example, you can say, hey, this was spent, from my CIBC Business MasterCard, right? And it was a credit card, right? And it was paid to City of Ottawa, right? And notice that it starts learning as you're typing. You can say City of Ottawa and hit the save button. So again, a shift in mindset where we are saying, hey, look how the money is flowing out of the business, and then use that to indicate. So this was a withdrawal out of your general, so that's why, we put it right here. So that was a money that left your general account, and we kind of put it there. Okay. Now, let's go back with the example. What are other kinds of disbursements that you can have? So we show you that. The second one is your actuals, or your mileage. your unit rate, your faxes, all that stuff. Like, there's a possibility you might have an expense, you might not have an expense. So you can say fax, right? You can say, I'm charging you for 75 fax at $1, right? No expense because, I didn't pay for it because it's covered as part of my office expense, and you can hit the save button. So again, follow the money and enter that in uLaw that same way. Okay? Follow the money and then enter it in uLaw the same way. Now, still, the only red that's being pointed here is the fact that, invoice is still pending. Okay? So let's talk a little bit more about other stuff that I can do in general. Okay, we already did, the disbursement pay from general. We talked about actuals. We talked about mileages. Mileages, we can do that. We can change this to mileage. And you can say, hey, we're charging for legal counsel travel mileage, 50 kilometers to do a court travel, right? We can say visit to out-of-city court, right? And you can have your rate here. Again, you can put your gas expense here. This is not going to be shown to the client. The top part is what is going to be shown to the client. Or you can just leave it blank, and you can hit the save button. Now, what's the key advantage of doing it this way? The key advantage of doing it this way is even if something is invoiced, right, only the top portion gets locked. The bottom does not get locked. So if I open this application fee, there's two portions here. One is the client portion, and the other is your expense portion. So this part gets locked when you invoice. This part gets locked when you actually reconcile. And these are two different actions that happen, in the software, because when you get invoiced, what you've sent to the client needs to get locked. You can't change that. When you reconcile, you kind of told uLaw that, hey, I actually saw $79.10, in my bank, leaving my bank. So, you reconcile that. So, when this gets locked. So that's the key difference, okay? That's why we want you to follow the money and put that into uLaw that way, okay? And we also changed the verb. Like, for example, rather than just saying client payment, we say accept client payment, new retainer. So the verb is more directing you towards the action that you're actually doing, so that you can kind of input it in a more logical way. Okay, so we've dealt with disbursements. Let's talk about consultancy expense. There are several times in a matter where you might actually be, you might outsource it. Like for a classic example is the court hearing was in Windsor, and you're not traveling to Windsor. You got your consulting firm to actually do that work for you, but you want to charge that and pass that to your client. This is where you would go to general and say, hey, I paid for that, so it's a withdraw, and it's a third-party consultation. So you can say, consultation fee expense, and you can say, court visit at Windsor by, let's say, John Law Office. And this is what you're charging your client. Let's say you're charging him, $200, right? You can put that. In the bottom, what did John charge you? So you can say, hey, it's John's law office. They sent me an invoice, right, for, $200. But you know what? They also send me a surcharge. Let's say they send me a surcharge of about $35. I don't want to pass that to my client. I can say, hey, that's a disallowed expense of $35 that they charged on top of the $200. I'm not passing it to the client. You can do that. Then you can say, hey, how did I pay for it? I paid, using my general account. I wrote a check to John's law office. The check number was that, and hit the save button. Again, I want to point out to you that this will be locked, and you will see that when I do the invoice. This will not be locked, basically, because this will be locked only when you do the reconciliation. Okay? Let's hit the save button. So if people are following me so far, we are following the money as it happened, in real life, whether it was trust or general. You're clicking on the action button. It was a withdrawal from trust or a deposit into trust or a withdrawal from general or a deposit into general. So you're kind of following that. Okay? Now, another thing is prepayments to deposit. Now, what happens is sometimes, companies like uProcess or Conveyancer, they allow you to pay disbursements early, and then you can distribute it to your client. So this is a new form of disbursement. We introduced that about 8 to 9 months ago, where you can prepay for it, and then we can distribute it here. So in here, you can always say, hey, what is the prepayment? And then, from which account are you actually, distributing? Like, is it a process server account, or is it TerraView that you're, or is it some prepaid expense that you've already covered for? So you could do that. So, the same, it's no different from any other disbursement that you're charging the client. In the report of expense section, you're actually telling us that, hey, don't charge it against the bank because it's not a bank withdrawal. It's actually it's a general withdrawal, but it's going out of, a prepaid account. That's what this is all about. So just to quickly recap, we followed the money for trust for retainer. We followed the money for a trust disbursement so far, right? So, followed the money for general payments, okay? The only action in red is invoice pending. So let me now go ahead and raise an invoice. This is where we have introduced a new feature in uLaw, which is called backdating. Now, backdating is, and this is where I'm going to show a couple of examples. Let's say, for some reason, application fee, I'm going to backdate that. Let me backdate it to 1st of May. Okay. I also need to backdate the retainer so that, it kind of looks like as if it's being paid from trust. So let me do that. Let me go up, backdate this. Backdate this to late in April, let's say 23rd of April, okay, and apply. So as you saw here, everything here happened on 4th, but just these two things, the retainer and the application fee, happened on May the 1st. If you want to generate an invoice with just these two, we allow you to do that. We can say document generation, invoice, backdate. That's the new feature that we have added. And you can say the backdated date is actually now, I'm going to make it like 2nd of this, so, we kind of give ourselves, and I'm going to do a preview. You will see now that in this backdated invoice, nothing is there other than just the application fee, because our cutoff date for that was 2nd of May, and our retainer is the only thing. So this is a brand new feature that we have implemented in uLaw, which is you can now backdate invoices. You don't have to do just a complete invoice. So this opens the door for a lot of features. Like, for example, legal aid is a classic example. You now don't have to raise an invoice, right, to actually send to legal aid. You could just keep billing, and then for legal aid, you could just do document generation, a legal aid report, get paid, and then go back and raise an invoice for that date for which you actually did a legal aid this thing. So it gives you that flexibility. So that's the key element with backdate. Now, I just did a preview. So if I go back, obviously, preview is complete. I can just do an invoice for that backdate, and it'll finalize my invoice. Now, notice that when I do that, okay, obviously the invoice only has one element, which is the application fee, right? And it tells the client, hey, he has no action to take, basically because, there's still $620 as of that date, right? If I go back to my matter, I can edit everything else other than those two. So if I click on edit here an item, you'll see that the top part is locked. The bottom is still open. I can change this amount, but the top is all locked because obviously it got invoiced. But if I look at other ones, like say, for example, my fax, which is not yet invoiced, it's all open for me to kind of, update. So that means what backdate allows you is it allows you to do selective invoicing. So you can say, hey, this is my cutoff date. So you can have cutoff dates, and you can keep progressing in your matter. And, we see this a lot with firms where there's like a legal counsel and an assistant. So you can tell your assistant, hey, my billing date is 15th of April. Go ahead and invoice all the matters which have work in progress until the 15th of April. So because because you worked the previous night and you confirmed that, hey, everything up to 15th is all good, so that your assistant can just go ahead and just keep her billing process going. So that's a brand new feature. It's called the backdate of invoicing that we have introduced, which allows you to, it doesn't force you to do a complete invoice all the time. Okay. Now coming along, so now you've kind of done your invoice. It's time for you to transfer that money. How do you do that? I mean, the most recommended way is to hit the question mark, because the question mark shows you in red to actually transfer. That's our preferred way, right, to do that. But you can also follow the money. You know that this money was sitting in trust for you, and you need to transfer that. So obviously you can click on Action button, and you can say Withdraw from Trust, and that's Trust Invoice Payment Transfer. Or you can even go to this Trust tab. It's a withdrawal from trust, right? And that's a Trust Invoice Payment Transfer. And when you click on that, it will only bring that one item that you have actually invoiced, which is the application fee, right? You can click on that, and you can transfer that from your trust to your general account. And that's your electronic fund transfer that you're doing, right? And you can do a transfer. Obviously, the process here remains the same. We will be forcing you to, do a Form 9A. We fill in all these things. And this is a new feature again, we automatically filled in CIBC and all that stuff. How did we do that? Let me walk you through that process. When you go to your accounts, we change this button. We call it explicitly Chart of Accounts. So when you go into your trust account, you can have a nickname. You can say, hey, my trust account nickname is CIBC : and you can give your entire trust account. And as you see here, we populate that. Similarly, my general account, I think I chose the Dana general account, CIBC. I have CIBC 765678. It got populated here. So use this nickname to actually give us that information, and we can pre-populate Form 9A for you. There's almost nothing here in Form 9A that you need to fill now, because it has everything. It has the requisition number, the funds, the reasoning, everything is there. You just have to print it and sign it. So we make Form 9A really, really simple now. Okay. Now, taking it further, so you saw now, you again followed the money. You hit on, withdrawal from trust, and you kind of hit the payment button, and you kind of moved it. Now, again, withdrawal from trust has other stuff too. There's a refund of a retainer that you can do, right? There's a settlement payout. There's other payouts, and there's also an intermatter transfer. That's also moving money. Obviously, it's not physically moving money, but it is moving money out of this trust account, so it is a withdraw from trust in that view. So that's why you have it classified under that button as a withdrawal. Okay. Now, let me look at general. Now, the general should tell me a couple of things. The first thing is the disbursement that we charge to the client. Notice that I put a lot of disbursements, but only the fee billed to the client will be there in this statement of accounts, right? The rest is all expense. And then the transfer that I did to pay myself. And the balance is $0. So the statement of accounts for general also follows the general tab. So you can use both general and the trust tab and completely avoid this process of going to, document generation, statements, and doing a trust or a general statement. If I would go here and I would do a show only, it would be no different from what I actually saw on the screen there, to do that. See, you see that 700 is that 139,760. That's what is left. Would be exactly what I would see on the trust screen if I just clicked on that tab. So the two are no different. Okay. Now I'm going to give you a roadmap feature here. We are working to see if we can bring an edit feature here. We want you to edit right here. Let's say you want to change the $700 to $900. We don't want you to go to disbursements and tab and click hey, edit, item. That's our next view. We're going into that mode where you can edit it right on the screen. Just hit the save button and you can move on. So we are working on that. Not there yet, but definitely, as you see, it's taking us in that direction. Okay. Now, some key advantages of the screen is it gives you the date, the particulars, when it really happened. It also gives you a statement total in the column. Like, for example, invoices and disbursements, it gives you a view of how much it is, right? Like the $60 trust payment and the $79.20 general payment added together, and then the receipt adds it up, and then it gives you a balance view. So all your trust view and your general view is right here. Like in this case, clearly, like, 710 receipt, was billed and 710 got paid. Nothing, the client does not owe anything. All that information is right here. Okay. So that's the new addition to some of these channels. Let's now keep moving on. Like, we kind of discussed about these things. Let's talk about settlements. Now, settlements obviously have two things. One is they basically, everything settlements just happens in trust. There's no other place where settlements happen. So now settlements follow the button. You can say deposit in trust. That's where you receive the settlement from the opposing party. So you can say deposit in trust. So you can say, hey, I received, $700 or whatever, right? Like, as a settlement, the check number is 90. It was received from John because John was the opposing party, and you can say apply. So that's receiving, okay? Now the payment, you're writing off that $700 back to your client, so you can use the withdraw from trust account. You can say, hey, withdraw, settlement payout, right? Obviously, it goes for the maximum amount that you can pay out, but you want to pay only $700 to John. So you can say, hey, that's check number 90, or it might be even lower, right? It might be like, say, 400. And you can say description, first installment of the settlement, right? And then it was paid to Kanchan, right? Kanchan, and you can hit the payment button, okay? So you saw now settlement, again, follow the money, go into trust, and it's either a deposit or this, or you can, there's always a shortcut. Like, action is a shortcut where, you follow it right from here, how you deposited it and how you actually paid from it, okay? Now, similar to settlement, we also have another category called other payment deposits in trust and other payouts from trust, okay? So we have that as well. So if you're following that, like, we can do that. Now, another key thing that we have kind of now brought in is refund, retainer refunds. Now, we are seeing sometimes the clients, close off a matter with retainer being refunded. Again, follow the money, withdraw from trust, and you can hit the refund right here. Okay, you can say again how much you can refund. That's the max amount you can refund, but like, you can always shorten it to the real amount that actually needs to go. Okay. Now, clearly, we are halfway into our presentation, so that's some of the fundamental change that we have brought in the matter screen. The action button has changed significantly. The trust in general has changed with clear indications of what you can do. At this time, I want to also change my directions and show you a very important feature that we have brought into uLaw is integration with third-party software where you can do other stuff. Like, for example, some of the real estate lawyers do stuff in, conveyancer or due process. We now integrate with that. Like, so there's a completely separate procedure on how you can export to PC Law. Like, there's a video that I've made in uLaw Answers that you can actually look for. But the key element I wanted to show you is how do you actually import in that piece into uLaw. Very simple. You just click on the import button. Okay, and then you need to decide what are you importing. Is it a conveyancer fee or the disbursement? Let's say it's a disbursement. You can just choose that file, right, that you're importing. So in this case, I'm going to go into my, I think I have it here. Okay, it's my DP. I think conveyancer actually puts it as, it calls it like dpdisp.txt. That's what it describes it. Just choose that, and you hit the upload. uLaw will just bring the entire conveyancer charges into us. Like, for example, search costs, execution certificates, fax transmissions, couriers, everything that you've done in conveyancer, we just pull it in. And the software is extremely smart. It knows what you did in conveyancer, which ones had HST, which ones did not have HST. You can just say, take action, this. It'll tell you, hey, that one had HST. It immediately does that. Now, if it's a bank charge, obviously does not have HST, or software transaction charge does not have an HST. So you can just say bank charge, take action, and you do that, the software will mark out HST as 0. We've really made it extremely simple to actually now import from Conveyancer to uLaw. I just wanted to showcase this feature. This is a new feature that we've added, like backdating, that you can just bring in the entire statement. So look at your real estate transaction. Now you can do the entire stuff in some third party, like Conveyancer, due process, divorce-mate. We kind of said, you know what, just go and do your stuff, because that's what your legal stuff is all about. Just get us the accounting details, and we will just put it in seconds. So, for all those real estate lawyers who are looking for that integration with Conveyancer, we made it really, 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 really very easy. Now, if you go into Conveyancer, it's just like setting up an export, right? You just set up an export as if you're using PC Law, set up the exports. Every matter that you work on, just go on the statement of accounts. They have a nice button there called Export to PC Law. Export it to PC Law, but then you can import it into uLaw. And that's the direction that we're building. We are going to build a very powerful import mechanism that you can import anything. We can import Excel, for example. Let's say, you have everything in Excel. You can just say import, okay? And I can say, hey, all my fees are maintained in Excel. You can just say upload, and here I'm going to just show you an Excel here. That's my fees. Import, upload. Here's your fees. So look at that. I can just say take action, add a new event. Take action, add a new event. And then when I close it and I go to my matter events, look at that. It just imported the entire thing from Excel, 199 and this 396. It just got it. All I need to hit is just the save button, and then I'm pretty much ready to move on. Okay. So we can now export from Conveyancer. We can now export from Excel. We're looking at other mechanisms. We're going to be looking at other softwares, from where you can very easily import accounting stuff so that, you can keep it accounting. So that's a key differentiator that we are bringing into uLaw, which is making us even better. So let me quickly summarize before I leave the matter screen, because there are other improvements that we have brought in other screens. But as you saw in Matter, we've increased the real estate so that you can see more. I have a 15-inch monitor, and you can see how much I can see in it. We talked about disbursements, we have made it more verbal. We said, hey, accept client payments so that you kind of, we want to remove the accounting lingo out of the legal profession. When legal professionals use legal accounting software, we don't want to force them to use accounting lingo like debits, credits, and all that. We want it to be more normal, plain English. So that's one of the attempts. That's why we made it very explicit. Pay disbursement from general. Pay disbursement from general. Actuals. So we've done it that way. We talked about the statement of accounts integrated right into the software, so you can do it right here. We talked about backdating of invoices that we have done as a new feature, and then we talked about import. One key thing that I want to bring here, we have enhanced one of the report called the settlement statement. Okay. Now, if you look at the Law Society compliance, one of the things that they indicate to you is they want you to be in touch with your client at least on a quarterly basis. So what we did was, in every matter, we brought a button here called compliance button. When you click on that, it kind of shows you that if you ever got audited, what are all the stuff that you should have had for this matter. Client ID verification, client intake process, conflict screening, retainer letter, authorization. We kind of have made all these things very obvious and, very easy, but with just this one single button here called compliance. And, once you do that, everything comes and then you can just pull out. One document that I really want to pay attention is settlement plus accounts document. Okay, so let me click on that, and I'm going to download it, and I'm going to open it. The reason why this document is extremely important is because it gives your client a complete view of where the matter stands. For example, it tells you the professional services rendered. What are the disbursements that we have engaged so far? It tells them all the retainers that they're paid, and it summarizes it. It also tells them all the settlements that you received and the settlements, what's happened. It tells them, if there were any other trust funds that were moved. For example, did you do anything with disbursements and trust? It tells you that. Then for general, it really splits it. It tells you this is how the Law Society wants your fee book to be laid out. It exactly does it that way. disbursement incurred, the bill, the HST, GST, PST, whatever was incurred, it shows you that. It shows you invoice trust transfers that you did. And then finally, it shows your client a very nice summary, right, of what happened in this matter in retainer, settlements, trust payments. It kind of shows him how much balance is left in trust. It's a whole 9 yards. Like, it shows them everything that they have to know about this matter, and we brought it under a single button, under the Law Society compliance, okay? So on a quarterly basis, the Law Society expects you to reach out to your client and give them a statement. Or you can do that in one click, okay? We also brought in other buttons like non-engagement, disposition letters, and closing letters, so that's all been streamlined now into the compliance panel. Now, we only had compliance panel earlier only in the account section. Now you see compliance is there in matter. It's there in contacts too. So in contacts, there's a mandatory portion and a non-mandatory portion. So, you click here. The mandatory one is only conflict screening. The rest is all like, non-mandatory quarterly, client statements like fee books, source of contacts, branding. That's part of your compliance, like, how you brand, right? So we've done that. We also, everybody using uLaw regularly already knows about the compliance and accounting because we have everything that the Law Society wants. Like, if your auditor sees this, we can guarantee you that, your audit will go very smoothly because the trust general, and this is where, like, again, we have compartmentalized it into ledgers, journals, and others, right? This is what your, Law Society requirements are. We have nicely compartmentalized that way. But also under calendar, we have now brought compliance as well. So there are three things that the auditors are now looking for. One is, are you regularly doing work-in-progress reports just to understand your business? A pro bono report is something that they can ask for. That's a time and professional management compliance, right? And the last professional time and compliance is invoice balance. Are you actually seeing how healthy your business is, right? Like, so we've kind of brought all those stuff under the action panel, under compliance button. So that's the new change that's also been brought under this. But the report has been enhanced. It's more standardized, and it's pretty appealing, and it's very clean, so that you'll be very proud to share this with your client. And the nice thing is it's also very, very well branded with your logo and your banner and all that stuff. With a little time left, I want to go into some newer features in accounting. So in accounting, we have enhanced the reports. Some of the requirements that some people put together was comparisons. They wanted to do comparisons, and we have brought now we have comparisons in uLaw. Like, for example, you can do a balance sheet in three ways. You can do a detailed balance sheet, you can do a category-based balance sheet, you can do a summary balance sheet, and then you can compare two dates. And I'm going to do that. Let me compare, let's say this year. So I'm going to compare the first with the last of the year, the first date. So January 1st, where I was with respect to where I am on 31st of December. I mean, obviously 31st does not happen. It was going to be today that it's going to compare against. But that's a key comparison metric that we are now building into this report. So let's now look at the balance sheet. So I'm going to go straight to the bottom because that's where I want to really start with. Look at that. It tells you your account summary in seconds on the 1st of January and the last, which is actually today because there's no transactions in the future that's happened. But it tells you, like, hey, you're heading in the right direction. You already made $70,000, for the year. In 1 second, you're able to compare your beginning of the year to this day. The reason why you are able to do that is because you reconcile properly. The key element is to keep your trust and general reconciliation to the bank. If your reconciliation is correct, every data here is perfect. So it gives you perfect indicators. So, and comparing accounting data is very key because it gives you a foresight of where your business is actually leading. And that's where we even enhanced it further. We said, hey, you know what? It's not just about balance sheets. We brought it for trial balance. You can just do, again, I'm going to do a quick yearly comparison. And this takes you to an individual account level and gives you a trial balance sheet comparison. So as you see here, my pool trust account from 583 went down here. Maybe, there was a mortgage payment or something like that. My general account really doing good. It's really going up. My Visa didn't make a lot of change. My MasterCard, there's a change. So it immediately gives you a January 1st view and the other date view, whichever one that you're looking for, right? So you can put two dates, and you can compare them and say, hey, this is where I was, and this is what I ended up for every account, your HST account, your revenue accounts. You can say, hey, look at that. For immigration, I was here, I've ended up here, right? That's a trial balance view. Now let's take it to the next step, which is can we compare them for revenue, expense, and P&L. Let's do all of them. I'm going to do in revenue. Now the revenue view is what are the new categories that you've hit and what are the old category comparisons. Like for example, immigration, you are here and then you came down here. That means what? Probably you performed a year end. That's great. You did a year end, and that's why that account got reduced. Okay. For accounts that you did not do year end, it'll tell you hey, where you ended up with. So that's your comparison with respect to income. And what I would actually do, what I really like about this revenue is if I do a yearly, and I'm going to do a yearly for last year, it will tell me a comparison from last year to this year. So this tells me that on 31st of December 2016, in immigration, I made this much. In 2017, for that same period, I made $14,000. So that's my difference. Tribunal, 2016 was way better than 2017. So you gave it one period, it immediately subtracted another period off, and it gave you a view. I could go back here and say, hey, you know what? Compare me this quarter. Compare me from April to June, and if I hit a download, what the software will do is it will compare me the previous quarter, right, to the 31st to here. So that's my previous quarter and this quarter. So last quarter, I made $1,000 in immigration. This quarter, I had no matter. I did not make money in immigration. Contracts I made last quarter, I did not make in this quarter, right? Real estate, I made that much in last quarter and this quarter. So immediately you get a perspective of your business, right? That's what we have done with the date feature, right? That's a new feature that we have added for revenue, expense, P&L. So if I would do a quarterly profit and loss comparison, it's both income and expense analysis, right? It would immediately tell me where did I stand with respect to my profits. So I can say, hey, last quarter, my profits, right, were in the range of about $64,000. Right now, the quarter is not still complete. I'm in the range of about $3,000. So income to this, income to that. That's another new feature that we have introduced as part of our accounting reporting structure. So along with the compliance panel, we've also introduced comparisons, profit comparisons, expense comparisons, revenue comparisons, trial balance comparisons, and balance sheet comparisons. So with that, I have about 10 minutes left. I'd like to take a few questions. Obviously, many people will have questions on why did we go this way, what were some of our choices, and let me take some of the questions already there. Is there a way to prepare a prepaid legal service, the money you get from clients that they prepaid you? Okay, let me answer this, Randy. When somebody prepays you, that money goes into your trust account. And then you do the service, and then you transfer that money from trust to general to pay yourself. Just because they did prepaid, I don't know if you're intending that should that money go into general. No, the answer is no. Prepaid has to go into trust. It's like a retainer. Prepay is no different from anything else. Prepay means you haven't done the work, they've given you the money, and it will go into trust. Then you would do the work, and as you saw, you could do backdating of invoices or current dating of invoices, and then you would follow the money. So the way you would follow the money is you will do the work, and then you say withdraw from trust, and you do an invoice trust transfer and do that. I mean, if you are comfortable with the previous thing, the question mark, everybody loves the question mark because it drives information much more. But what we have tried to do is we made it more verbose now. That's all we've done. So, to answer your question, prepaid, no different. Like, you would put it in the retainer and then move it here. Will this video be in YouTube? Absolutely yes. Every webinar goes to our YouTube channel, and this is no different. Like, so I'll just show you where we are on YouTube. So in our YouTube, and there's some changes there too. Like, if you go into our playlist, right, we have classified our videos, and this is again a feedback somebody gave us. We have uLaw Answers only for matters, our webinars. This is where we are planning to upload this video. Reconciliations, there's a separate section, just like, a playbook, playlist just there. So if you click on that, and if you click on this, it'll show you only our reconciliation videos. Like, we have about, 5 videos so far on that topic, right? So we have that, and this is where we would be uploading. There's a playlist just for iPhone users, and there's a playlist just for the Android users, right? Like, these two people are different people, and so we have separate playlists for each of them. There's a playlist just for understanding setting, how to do things. There's a playbook. There's a playlist for everything. Like, there's a playlist for quick view, calendar, and as we are doing more, like, for example, if you go into matter management, that's where you would see all our answers for, like, joint retainer and this, and, like, additional parties, real estate, all the questions that you've been asking, they're all under matter. Okay, but we generally recommend people to go straight to uLaw Answers. And uLaw, Google is so nice. Like, you can just search right here, right? You can just say, click here and say, enter matter trust transfer. There you go. That's your question. So, we strongly recommend that you use the search straight out of Google. Any other questions? I'm more than happy to take it. Can we customize a retainer form? You mean a retainer letter? Absolutely. So in uLaw, many people are not aware that we have several retainer letters actually in uLaw. So when you click on document generation, right, let me do that. We'll click on document generation. We have a retainer letter here. Right here, there are 3 formats: simple, elaborate, flat rate. You can get it in Word, you can get it in PDF, you can get it in English, you can get it in French. So right here, there are 6 combinations that you can get, but that's not the end of it. You can always go to document generation letters, and if you go here, there's a hourly retainer, and there's a contingency retainer. 2 more, that's 8. And then if you go to retainer samples, you have general retainer sample, HTA sample, a normal engagement sample. There's so many. Again, possible in Word and that, like, that you can just download, and they're all branded. Now, if you have your own, absolutely, Prem, feel free to share it with us. We don't mind, including it, like, into our template. So as I showed you, we have almost now 13 or 14 retainers in the software that you can kind of do. But if you have like a special retainer for, say, notary, or some other retainer for some real estate, or some form, please share it with us. We'll be more than happy to upload it. Thank you. Any other question? Like, we have a good forum of people, here. There are some people. There are some people who are asking us a lot of questions about 2-factor authentication. It is an irritant. We understand that, because it's now forcing you to kind of have an extra device. But you got to trust us on this one. We are a cloud software, so we got to be careful about security. The reason why we are doing that is because there are some good artificial intelligence algorithms that we are using to detect that your environment has changed, your browser has changed, you upgraded your browser, your machine has been upgraded, has some new software been implemented. So we are checking all that. And when we find these things, we don't want to expose your software till you actually authenticate it using the secondary device, which is your phone or your email. Okay. Right now, we are only offering this as an email service. We are looking to expand that as an SMS service. Okay. But right now, that's where we are. We have made our algorithms better and better. Initially, it was asking almost every day. Now it's asking less and less because we really understand your computer and your environment better. So our AI algorithms are working their way. So please be patient, but please don't avoid it. It's very important. Any other questions? We have another 5 more minutes. Let me go back to the question. In action is the difference between payment and general, just making the trust area heading a different color than the general section. That's a good feedback. We will take that. Generally, we like to keep the amount of color pretty minimal because, color is not very appealing to the eye. We do have some good coloring already. If you look at our calendar today, it's very highly colorful. I don't know if many people are aware of that. If I put dockets in our calendar today with multiple lawyers and that, for example, I have an assistant, lawyer by name Janet, right? And I have another one, by the name Jennifer. Let's say there are 2 lawyers, Jennifer and Janet, legal counsels who work with me. And if I go to my matter and I put 2 dockets, right? I'll put 2, one for yesterday and another one for day before yesterday. I don't know if many people are aware of this, court visit, and let's say both of them are court visit, right? And I mark one of them as L2, and I mark the other one as L3. Let's say it is 0.5, 0.6. I hit the save button. If I go to my calendar, it'll actually show different colors for each of these persons. It'll say, hey, look at that, different colors completely. Your color is that, Janet and Jennifer, they all have different colors. So if you are a collaborating team, we already have enough colors, in our software to differentiate that, okay? And you already know the red color. Red color means it's an event in the past that you haven't billed. See, billable time is missing. If I would edit it and I would say the billable time is 0.6, and I would hit the save button, you would see that the color would change right there. There you go. Okay. And we get uLaw calendar connected with 2 different email accounts. I use Gmail calendar for my calendar, and I use a different service. Now, synchronization of uLaw with any other calendar is easy. The reverse is what is not possible, okay? So to synchronize, we always ask you to go to our native app. So I don't know if you're an Android user or an iOS user. I recommend you to go to our app store and download the app and use it a lot more. In that app, in the calendar, we have a synchronization button. So you can just look at a particular day and just hit the sync button, and it'll just synchronize it to whatever you have on the phone. So we do it that way. Hopefully that'll answer it. When you mouse over our Hoover time entries, Massa's pop number appears. How do we turn off this? Let me try and see what you mean. When you mouse over time entry boxes, masses of pop numbers appears. How do we turn off that? Let me try and see what David is actually trying to say. I believe he says when I hover over here, that. Is that what? That's basically a time entry. Not everybody is comfortable. You don't have to. If you just click here, it'll go away. If you just click here, it'll just go away. Only if you move your mouse down, it will come. If you just click here, it'll just go away. You can say 12, an hour, and 36 minutes. Now, we understand decimal system. This is something many people don't know. If you are more used to decimal and you say 1.6, uLaw will convert that into an hour and 36 minutes. You don't have to actually type it, So that's an easier way. But that widget is mainly there to showcase the time and entry, to do that in that way. But if you just click here, it'll just pop. It'll go away. Good questions. I'm almost out of time, but if you guys have any more questions, use our support forum. Thanks, David. Again, you know how to reach us. Click on the help panel and go to our support. I do want to leave you guys with 2 things. We have uploaded a compliance guide and an audit guide. two great documents because, like, we don't want you to be doing this 2 days before an audit, right? Like, so we have a weekly compliance, monthly compliance, quarterly, and how to do that in uLaw, right? Like, we have all that. Like, this is what you need to do for the week. This is what you need to do for the month, like, and how to do that in uLaw is all explained, right? Like, so please review that. And another key one that I wanted everybody to leave with is audit guide. Okay, there's an audit guide, and you don't have to be a uLaw customer to use this guide, right? Like, this is basically our way of decimating, we want to give as much information as possible to legal professionals who are, going to be audited. And this is your checklist. We have prepared the checklist. Now, every bullet here, you will find a button in uLaw. Like, how do you capture proper fee structure in your retainer? We have a retainer. Handling contingency. So everything that we have here has a follow-up back into uLaw. So we ask you to do that. And like YouTube, we also have a SlideShare network. So you can go to slideshare.net/uLawPractice, and that's where you will see all our documents that we upload, checklist, that our very famous, this client life cycle that we have, right? Like, how do you actually process a client? Like, we have that document. We have audit tips, So go to slideshare.net/uLawPractice, and you will see all our great documents there. Like, So once again, I want to thank everybody who took their time on a Friday afternoon to just listen to us about what we have as a new feature. It shows how much of you are really interested, and I'm sure many of you knew it as I was explaining that these are features that you guys told us to implement. So kudos to you guys. I want to make yourself feel happy and give yourself a pat on the back because you guys told us to do this, and that's why we have done this. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful